Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the Ivinex online training webinar series. This one's going to be on importing data in Ivinex. My name is Brett Lund, and I'm going to be the host. Today we're going to go over importing data, and we're going to go over all the different settings that are available to you when you import your data. And we'll also learn some tips and tricks for importing and exporting your data, avoiding duplicates and things like that. So let's get started. Okay, the first step before you can import your data is that we need to clean up our data, make sure that the spreadsheet is ready to go. Now, when you start out, you may have some garbage in your spreadsheet, like maybe commenting or other stuff that's just not really relevant to the import. And so you want to remove all of that, and so that all you have left are just the column headings and your actual data, and that would be considered cleaned up. Also, you need to save your file as a .csv file format, comma separated file, before it can be imported. Ivinex only supports CSV file imports. One thing to note is that we do have a max file size that can be imported, which is 100 megabytes. If your file exceeds that, it's probably a good idea to give us a call, and we'd be happy to help import that. Otherwise, it might fail. It's probably going to fail if it's over 100 megabytes or really close to it. So just give us a call. If you are on a Mac, I mentioned that the file needs to be in CSV file format. If you're on a Mac, that option for when you save it out is called Windows, separated .csv. That's the option you pick if you're on a Mac. Okay, before we can start importing, it's probably a good idea to go over a few things about Ivinex and some of the fields and some of the record data that will be there. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the record ID. Now, in Ivinex, every record has a unique number assigned to it automatically called the record ID. The number is automatically created, and it will auto-increment for each new record. And when you export your data, it will be included in the export. So if you need something to uniquely identify your records, the record ID, is already happening, and it's something that you can use if you need to, uniquely identify different records. One thing to note here is that when you try to import, you cannot import directly into the record ID field. It's a system field, and you cannot overwrite it. So just know that you cannot import into this field and change these numbers. That's not going to, it's not going to work. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Okay, other system fields. There's a total of 5 of them. The record ID we just talked about. There's a few others: created by, created date, modified by, and modified date. What these 4 fields do, well, first I'll say that these 5 data fields are always included with every record that you have in Ivinex. It doesn't matter what module you're in, you'll always have those 5 fields. Now, the created by field stores the person who was logged in and created that record. Either they did it manually by clicking new and creating the record, or they imported a whole bunch of records. The system will track who that person was, so created by. Created date will be the date that the record was created. Well, seems pretty self-explanatory. You have the date and the time that it was created. Kind of a set, only happens once. Who created it? When was it created? Now, modified by is constantly being updated by the last person who modified the record. And the modified date is the last time and date that the record was modified. So because you have these 5 fields, or 5 pieces of data that go along with every record, we recommend that you do not overwrite this data, that you avoid importing into created by, created date, modified by, and modified date. That information is helpful for historical reasons, who created this record in the first place. So we recommend avoiding importing into those fields. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is when you're importing, if your module has no data in it and you import some records, there's no problems. You're just filling the module up with new records. Where you can run into a problem is when you are trying to, import, other data into the module. Maybe you're updating some records and adding some new records, all within the same import. And at that point, you may run into a situation where you're creating duplicate records. So, what determines a duplicate? In the import tool, in the Ivinex import tool, you have the ability to pick certain pieces of data to uniquely identify what is a duplicate from what I'm importing in the spreadsheet, matching up with a record in Ivinex. We need something to exactly match on. It could be a multiple fields, or it could just be one unique identifier. But if we do find a duplicate, then we can take an additional action, like maybe just updating that record instead of creating a second one with the exact same data. So deduplication, I'll go over that here in a minute, and I'll show you the different options that we can pick and some strategies of how to avoid making duplicates. Okay, so before I go into the first option, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import some records, and we're just going to act as if those records are in the system already. We're just going to do a straight import into the system. So let me zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so I have a contacts module, and I want to import some records in here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the import button, and I'm going to pick a CSV file to import. I'm going to pick this one. It's been cleaned up. There's no commenting. There's no extra formatting. It's ready to go. So we're going to open that, and I'll let you know, or actually I'm going to show you in this file. So I have a column with a first name, a column with a last name, and a column with an email address, and that's really all that's there. So we're going to import this and move to the next step. Okay, and one of the things I need to do is I need to map different pieces of data. So let's select one of these contact records. So in my spreadsheet, I've got a first name, last name, and email address, and I need to pick which field in Ivinex that we're going to import that data into. So down here, we've got first name, and I'm going to pick as a contact first name field from my spreadsheet. On email, I'm going to pick the email address from the spreadsheet. And on the last name, I'm going to pick the last name field. So that's the only three pieces of data. This column over here is for deduplication. We're not going to check anything because I just want to, just import these records because I know that I don't have any records in there that match. So no deduplication needed, no other settings needed, just a straight import. So we'll click next. I found 10 records to import, and I'm going to finish that up. Okay, so it looks like it finished its import. So we'll refresh this here, and we've got 19 records. So we imported a bunch of new records here. Okay, so next up, we're going to import again, and I'm going to show you how the deduplication options work to uniquely identify records in here that match up with records in my spreadsheet. And maybe what we want to do is just fill in some blanks or update something about these records, but we don't want to create a second duplicate record of this. I just want to match my spreadsheet with something in Ivinex. So import tool again. I have another spreadsheet ready. I'm going to bring that up so we can look at it. Now this one has what's called the import ID. Actually, before I do the import, I should probably explain what that means, so we'll close that down. Okay, so I have an import ID column, first name again, last name, and I want to point out two differences. On this record, in here in Ivinex, it's BB King, and that's how it looks there. In my spreadsheet, I've got a B period King. So there's a difference there between that record and this one. I'll just say that all the rest of the information is the same as the other ones. But also in this spreadsheet, this record right here, this Eric Johnson record, does not even exist in Ivinex yet. So based off of our settings that we pick when we import this next time, we're going to decide what happens with this new one and with this already existing record. Okay, so for the import ID column, let me move that off. So what I've done here in Ivinex is you have that record ID that's always available to you. And what I've done, and you don't have to do this, but I am duplicating that record ID into a field called the import ID. I'm using a workflow to do that. I won't go in depth on that. But the idea is I'm just utilizing the unique identifier record ID, and I'm copying it over here, and I'm going to use this import ID for determining that this record right here in my spreadsheet, the import ID is 52, and it's going to match this record over here, which has an import ID of 52 as well. So let's import that. Okay, pick that spreadsheet. And okay, the nice thing is that if your column headers are named the same as your fields, Ivinex will automatically kind of map them for you. You don't have to make them the same, but it speeds up import, so that's one thing to note. Okay, so I'm going to pick email and first name. I'm also going to map last name. And this time we're going to do deduplication. So I need something unique. I'm going to use the import ID because I know that is unique. And some people might ask, why don't we click them all? Why don't I click everything for deduplication? And there's a reason for that. It's because this needs to be an exact match. So if you pick, say, first name instead of the import ID, that means, let's say you had a record in here with the first name of Steve, and I'm importing a spreadsheet of 20,000 records. There's probably going to be another contact in there named Steve with the same spelling. So if all I'm using is I'm trying to determine a unique record in my Ivinex system and in the spreadsheet, and I'm using the name as the unique identifier, you're going to run into problems when it finds one Steve in here and 20 Steves in your spreadsheet. Not a good field to pick for deduplication. So you want something truly unique. That's this import ID. All right. So before I pick any options down here, I'm going to go back to my slide and explain what these first two, what do they do. So we're going to go back to this. Okay, so the first thing to note is in that deduplication dropdown, the default option is called Keep Existing and New Records. Now what this one does is it basically it ignores any fields you've picked for deduplication. So that might be a little bit confusing, but the idea here is that on all of your imports, that deduplication field is set to this option. So I'll briefly go over what that means. It means that here's my spreadsheet. I have a record, Joe Satriani. I've already got that record in Ivinex, so it already exists. And what it's going to do is it's going to keep that record, my existing one, but it's going to create another one. It's going to create another one with the same data, because it's not really going to determine that these are duplicates. It's going to just create a copy of it or another one. It acts a lot like a straight import. So note that keep existing and new records will ignore any fields you've selected for deduplication. So that doesn't help us when we want to just update records that are already there. Okay, moving on to the next option. Merge records, add if not found, preference to the new record. Now what this does is if I can uniquely identify a record in Ivinex that matches a record in my spreadsheet, what it's going to do is it's going to try to merge the records, the spreadsheet data and the Ivinex record, and which one is in charge, which one overwrites which one. Well, preference to the new record means this new data that I'm importing from my spreadsheet will attempt to overwrite my existing record. So a good example of that is right here, where I have my record over here in Ivinex. First name is Joe. My spreadsheet also has the same value, Joe, so nothing is going to happen. It's the same data. In my Ivinex record, my last name has S-A-T. My spreadsheet data has Satriani. So since I'm preferencing to the new data, this last name field will update to be Satriani. In my Ivinex record, my email address field was blank. In my spreadsheet, I have an email address, so that means it will fill in that blank. Okay, so that's what merging the two records together with a preference to the new data, that's what that means. And then this last part, add if not found, means that if I cannot find, like say this Keith Richards record, if I can't find that in Ivinex at all, just add it. Just add a new one. Okay? So there is one other option in that drop-down that closely mirrors this functionality, and that one is called Update Only If Exists, Preference to New Record. I'll show you that real quick. Let me find my Update tool. It's right here, Update Only If Exists, Preference to New. Now what that means is it does all of this first part, this merging. It'll only update records that already exist with a preference to the imported data, preference to new, and it doesn't include this add if not found part. Okay, so if you want to make sure that all you ever do is just update existing records, but you don't want to add anything new, you can use the update only if exists with a preference to new option. Alrighty, so now we're going to finish that import. So I'm ready to go. Deduplicating on import ID. Action for deduplication is merge records, add if not found, preference to new, and we'll click next. So it found 10 duplicates. That's good. Continue on. And that was fast, so it's finished. We'll go back to the data itself, and let's refresh that, and we will move to the next records here. Okay, so what I want to point out is, a minute ago, we talked about how that there was a difference between the data. Originally, that was B without the periods in there. Now it's B dot, and this other record, Eric Johnson, was not here, but now it is. So I basically overwrote that one field with my spreadsheet data, and I added a new record. So it did exactly what we expected it to do based on the deduplication option I picked. Okay. So that's done. Let's move on to talk about some of the other options here. One of the things you can choose is just a little bit different. Merge records, add if not found, preference to the existing record. So all the same merge stuff is pretty much the same, except for we are going to have a preference to the existing record in Ivinex. So that means the Ivinex record is kind of the boss. Joe, if I import Joe into this field, there's no change. let's say my spreadsheet was SAT for the last name, and my last name over here in Ivinex is Satriani, I would be preferencing my existing record, so this would the spreadsheet would not update the last name. But for my email address, let's say it was still blank again, it would add the information from the spreadsheet to there. In the end, preferencing the existing record means that, fill in the blanks only, mostly, is what it means. You still do have the add if not found option on the merge records preference to existing here. So it still does that, adds the new record if it's not found. Now the other part, there's another option in there called update only if exists, preference to existing record. And just like the other option that we were talking about, all that does is update only, with the preference being to my existing record, and it doesn't contain the add new record option. So if you just want to fill in the blanks only for existing records, don't add new, you can pick update only if exists, preference to existing record. Okay. Here's one more option you can pick, replace with new record. Now what this would do is, we're just following along with deduplication, and let's say we find a duplicate record, the Joe record with the Joe record in my spreadsheet. So we found the match. What are we going to do? What we're going to do is we're going to completely delete this record, and we are going to create a new one with the same data from the spreadsheet, and this new record is going to have a new record ID, and this one will be gone. Now one thing a lot of people ask is, what if my first record had a related links, like a related activities or related accounts or related opportunities? What's going to happen to those links? And the answer is that your new record will retain all of the links that the original one that got deleted or replaced. Your new record will have all of those links still intact, so you won't lose any of the linking. Alrighty, so there's one other thing I want to talk about. We've talked about all the deduplication options. So I'm going to pull up the import tool here one more time, and I'm going to pick this file. And let's see, what we're going to talk about next is actually creating links in Ivinex. So let me just pull that up real quick. There's two ways to do it. Two ways to create links. You have the linking records piece right here of the import tool. I'll explain all that in a minute. The other way to create links is by actually importing a record and setting one of these linked record fields, which is kind of a lookup. You can go pick, and this goes to accounts. I can pick an account, creates a link to that account. You can import and set this field. Now the other kind of, you can create related links down here, which does the same thing. I can pick an account and create a link, but they're a little bit different. The import tool, linking records part right here, this will create these related links, and importing directly on this field works just a little bit different, but it'll create links as well. So I'll kind of describe the differences between those two. So I need to load up another spreadsheet here really quick. I'm going to load up this one. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got one new column that wasn't in my other spreadsheets before, and that's this one called the account ID. And we're going to import this spreadsheet a couple times, and we're going to use this account ID in two different ways to create links when we import. Okay, so I'm going to describe the two different kinds of links. So right here, you have embedded links. And what that does is it stores what's called a foreign key. It's the ID of some other record in some other module. You're storing that in with your other data. So my contact first name is Joe, last name is Satriani, he's got an email address, and by the way, this is the ID of the account that he is linked to, or this record is linked to, okay? That value right there would be represented by this field right here, okay? And on the related records, how that works is it uses a link table, and actually these both use link tables. But what the link table is it's a way for Ivinex to keep track of relationships. So one module in one record, maybe with an ID of 40, and another module in another record with an ID of 2 has a relationship between the two records. So when you use the related area down below, and I pick a related account or a related whatever, you're creating one of these link table records that keep track of some record in one module and another record in another module. Okay? So that's the link table. It happens behind the scenes. Okay. So we talked about creating links on import and how there's a couple different ways. I'm going to explain, let's talk about the linking tool and what do the different options mean. So let's go back to the import. And I've already got my spreadsheet, and I'm going to map my fields again. We're going to do first name and last name. And we're deduplicating on import ID. And let's do update only if exists with a preference to my new record, because I don't want to do anything other than just update existing records. And we want to, let's skip this top part. What we're going to do is we're just going to import directly into one of those linked record fields, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the account field in my contact module, which is right here, I want to import directly into it, and I want to set it using this value right here, this account ID column from my spreadsheet. So we're going to pick account ID for that one. Okay, so before we do that, one thing that can make it a little speedier or make it easier on you is for these linked record fields, you can change what is displayed out here. So I'm going to go to I'm going to pick an account here, and you'll see that it's set to show the name of the account. It's got account name. It shows up here. In Ivinex, you can change what is displayed here to be pretty much anything from that record itself. So I'm going to jump into the admin, and we're going to switch it to show the ID of the record that we've picked. So we're going to go to Demo Contacts, and I'm going to select the account field, and I'm going to change it from showing the account name to, I would like it to show the record ID. How about that? So I picked record ID. I'm going to click Save. When I come back around, I'm going to refresh this record. Oh, first I'm going to save it, of course. Then I'm going to refresh this record. And now it's showing a value of 1. And 1 is the unique ID for this record, 1. So when we import into this field, this value is going to match up with what's in our spreadsheet. And so the import tool will know exactly what to do. So back to the spreadsheet, or the import tool. So I've mapped my account ID directly to that field. I've got deduplication on a unique identifier, which is import ID. I've selected update only if exists, preference to new. And so the idea behind it is I'm going to set this field, and I'm going to create some links by directly setting that field. Let's click Next. We found one duplicate because there's only one record in my spreadsheet, and it should create one link. Well, automatically. So there's that one record has been imported. We're going to go to that record right here. And this field wasn't set for this record a minute ago, but now it is. So that's one way to create links, is by setting linked record fields. So I'm going to break this link and save that. And I'm going to break it for this other record over here. Update that. Okay, so here's the same record again, no links. I'm going to import this same spreadsheet again. And this time, instead of using this column to set this specific field right here, I'm going to use it with the linking part, the linking tool right here. I'm going to use it with this tool to create a related record. Okay, so let's do that. Import. Pick this one. Last time we set account to the account ID, but I'm not going to do that this time. This time I'm going to pick first name to first name. Last name goes to last name. Import ID is already set. I'm going to use it for deduplication. I'm going to set the email to the email. Really not important at this point. I'm going to select update only if exists, preference to new, and I'm going to use this linking. So this first one here, the first drop down, is everything from my spreadsheet. So I want to use that unique account ID to create links. And where am I linking to? What data module am I going to look into? I'm going to look into it and try to match this account ID up with some record over there. So for demonstration purposes, it's called a demo account. That's what I'm looking. I'm looking to create a link down here. And then what field from my demo account module am I looking to match up with the value from my spreadsheet? And we can pick import ID if we want. That'll work. Okay. So again, spreadsheet, value, account ID, what module, demo account, and what field from my demo account module am I looking to match up with? So this will match up with this. Okay? So deduplication is on. Everything looks good. And let's click next. It should find one record. And when I click finish this time, it's going to show one record and one link created. Okay, so I've imported one record, one link created. So here's the record I just changed. There are no related accounts. I'm going to refresh it, and I now have a related account. So there's two ways to do links. You can set these fields directly, or use the linking tool to create these related records. All that can be accomplished through the import tool. So what if you wanted to do more than one link? That's entirely possible by using a combination. You can use the linking tool in the during the import, but you could also have multiple linked records. So you could set an account and a primary contact and whatever you want. You can use as many of those linked records as fields as you want, and use the linking tool. You could do create multiple links on one import. Okay, well that about covers it on the import tutorial webinar. And so what I want to do here is I just want to bring your attention to the fact that we do have a Ivinex training site. I keep that updated with information all the time. You can find the webinar videos there, or additional webinar videos. And the URL to get there is training.ivinex.com. You can leave comments. We'll monitor those and respond to you. If you are not getting notified via email for new webinars, I do have an area down in the bottom right of the website where you can subscribe. Just put in your email address and submit. Also, all Ivinex webinars will be put on the Facebook page. You can go there and confirm you're attending or even leave comments. You can get to the Ivinex Facebook page using the Facebook icon in this tool, bottom right of the training site, or even on the ivinex.com website. It's in the bottom right, looks like this. All right, well, that's it for this training webinar on importing data. I want to thank everybody for attending, and we'll see you next time.